Hello there, this is Nightline and I am Nadia Azmi. News making the headlines. Insolvency Department to speed up release of bankruptcies, says Azalina Othman Said. Also, Cabinet agrees to legalise firecrackers. The Prime Minister has confirmed that the development allowance for Members of Parliament MPs has been reduced to 1.3 million ringgit from 3.8 million ringgit. Datuk Seri Anwar Ibrahim said this move was meant to better control the country's finances and would be implemented in stages.
Allowance itu merupakan pembangunan untuk ahli Parlimen selaraskan dengan Pejabat Daerah dan juga kemajuan negeri. Tetapi oleh kerana keadaan kekangan ekonomi, jadi saya ingat biar kita buat secara peringkat. Jadi dana untuk ahli Parlimen juga bagi kerana dia bagi contoh yang awal.
The Prime Minister was speaking to the media in Port Dickson, Negeri Sembilan on Friday. However, he said the government would consider extending additional allocations if there were pressing needs in a particular parliamentary constituency, such as for repairing infrastructure. Media reports have said the constituency allocations for government backbencher MPs this year have been slashed by more than 65% from 3.8 million ringgit to 1.3 million ringgit. According to the reports, the amount consists of a 1 million ringgit outright grant and another 300,000 ringgit for service centre operations. Meanwhile, an economist from Putra Business School, Professor Dr. Ahmad Razman Abdul Latif, has agreed with Prime Minister Datuk Seri Anwar Ibrahim's decision to cut the development allowance for MPs. He said that the move was in line with the government's decision to better control the country's finances, and this alone will reduce the cost to the government by R500 million.
Even with such cut, each MP still have 1 million ringgit grant for the development purpose at their constituency and 300,000 ringgit for service centre operation. And if there is a pressing need such as repairing infrastructure, MP can always ask for additional allocations. So I consider this an appropriate move because the MP still have their allocation, and it's just that they have to plan wisely on its distribution, and there is still room for additional allocation for them, but more importantly, it reduced the government expenditure by more than R500 million annually. In order to further reduce government expenditure, such moves such as reducing leakages, wastages and corruption must always be led by those in charge of government ministries, agencies, GLCs and also statutory bodies. Our Prime Minister has shown the way, so now it's up to the rest of leaders to show such initiative in reducing these costs in their own organisation.
The Insolvency Department is in the midst of drafting several amendments to the Insolvency Act or Act 360 to speed up the procedure for a person to be discharged from bankruptcy. Minister in the Prime Minister's Department for Law and Institutional Reform, Datuk Seri Azalina Othman Said, said the revisions to the Act also include improvements to the bankruptcy administration system. In a statement on Friday, Datuk Seri Azalina said among the improvements to be made is the automatic discharge provision under Section 33C of the Act, which will allow a person's bankruptcy status be lifted in a shorter period. She added that the government will also establish a time frame for the submission of proof of debt forms by creditors to prevent the problem of filing delays that can make it challenging to discharge bankrupt individuals, as well as streamlining the threshold for small bankruptcies in view of the new minimum wage and economic situation. Another proposed amendment involves allowing bankruptcy cases to be managed remotely. The government is also looking to allow mentally ill bankrupts and those above the age of 70 to be eligible for discharge from bankruptcies without objection from creditors. Datuk Seri Azalina added that an engagement session will be held with stakeholders on February 7th to discuss the suggested amendments to Act 360. Recently, the Insolvency Department revealed that 16 people were declared bankrupt each day last year, while the total number of bankruptcy cases administered for the period of 2018 to December 2022 was 49,133, with 40% of the cases involving those aged between 35 and 44. Fireworks and firecrackers will be allowed to be sold in the country, subject to new guidelines that will be issued soon. Local Government Development Minister Nga Kor Ming said the matter was decided during Thursday's cabinet meeting as one of the measures to raise the country's revenue.
Yang dapat untung adalah sindiket-sindiket bawah tanah. Okey, yang penyelundup masuk and there's no safety standard for the product. Maka kita tengok ada kemalangan, kan, kadang-kadang bung api. Oleh kerana itu semalam apabila Jemaah Menteri membuat keputusan setuju, saya jangka pendapatan kerajaan pun akan bertambah. Ratusan juta duty boleh kita dapat daripada pemegang-pemegang lesen.
Nga told this to reporters when met at a Jalinan Muhibah ceremony in conjunction with Chinese New Year celebrations in Putrajaya on Friday. He added that the government would control the sales of fireworks and firecrackers at the source, namely the wholesale and importer levels. He also said that he will leave it to the Home Ministry to come up with the guidelines and license requirements, while the Finance Ministry will determine the percentage of tax to be paid. In another development, Nga said food and beverage F&B premises located in cities nationwide will not be able to get their business licenses renewed next year if their toilets do not achieve the A certification standard set by the Local Government Development Ministry. The minister said this was in line with the move to improve the cleanliness of the country's public toilets.
Kementerian dah buat dasar baru. Semalam kita dapat keputusan selaras dengan prinsip tandas awam bertaraf BNW, bersih menawan wangi untuk semua F&B. Okay, mulai tahun depan di peringkat kawasan bandaraya, semua F&B ini outlet wajib mendapat sijil A untuk kebersihan tandas, restoran, hotel, warung kopi, kedai mamak dan lain-lain.
He also said that after city councils, the requirement for the A rating will be expanded to municipal councils in 2025 and district councils in 2026, involving approximately 18,000 public toilets. The ministry will also issue guidelines on what needs to be done to get the A certification. The Pulau Pinang state government is considering holding the state election in June or July. Its chief minister, Chow Kon Yeow, said that no official decision have been made regarding the date of dissolution of the State Legislative Assembly, but it may occur at the end of May.
In the case of Penang, it is 1st of August, lengkap 5 tahun. Tetapi kalau lazimnya dari segi politik dan pilihan raya, 8 hari bulan Mei sudah genap 5 tahun daripada pilihan raya yang lepas. So bagi saya, kalau selepas 8 Mei onwards, ia boleh dibubarkan bila-bila lah.
He said further discussions regarding the matter will be made in the near future before any decision can be made. Previously, Negeri Sembilan Menteri Besar Datuk Seri Aminuddin Harun proposed to dissolve the State Legislative Assembly on June 1st to make way for state polls. The High Court on Friday has allowed Datuk Seri Ahmad Zahid Hamidi's passport to be returned temporarily for him to apply for his diplomatic passport. However, Judge Datuk Colin Lawrence Sequeira rejected the Deputy Prime Minister's application to have his passport returned permanently to him to enable him to perform his duties. The court has agreed that Datuk Seri Ahmad Zahid is entitled to have his passport returned to him upon application for the purposes of applying for a diplomatic passport, after which the passport ought to be returned to the court. On January 26, Datuk Seri Ahmad Zahid filed an application to have his passport returned permanently to him to enable him to carry out his official duties as Deputy Prime Minister. The passport was previously surrendered to the court as an additional bail condition after he was charged with 47 charges of corruption, criminal breach of trust and money laundering involving Yayasan Akal Budi funds, of which the proceedings are now at the defence stage. According to recent data, more Malaysians are diagnosed with cancer than ever before, with 1 in every 10 people developing the deadly disease in their lifetime. However, there is still hope as cancer-fighting technology has improved by leaps and bounds in recent years, raising the survival rate even further. In conjunction with this year's World Cancer Day, our reporter Hakim Azman spoke to a cancer survivor to share her story and her battle with the disease.
Mahani Kasim was 53 years old when she was diagnosed with stage 2 breast cancer in 2016. Like anyone else, she felt overwhelmed by her diagnosis as the chances for her to get the disease was quite low due to her prior good health condition. While she initially struggled to face this trial, she found the faith to keep moving forward and started attending a support group with the National Cancer Society of Malaysia (NCSM) to learn more on living with cancer. Although she was facing an especially grim situation, she was adamant that she would go through the treatment needed to beat the disease.
The faith helped me a lot, but also knowledge. You have to read up, you have to ask. Don't be ashamed to ask your doctors, even though it might sound like a silly or simple question. Ask. Whatever you think you don't know, ask the right people. Ask your doctors if it's medical. Ask a support system if it has to do with your emotion. So, in order to deal with cancer, you have to be brave enough to face it, but at the same time to fight.
Like many of those going through treatment, Mahani also had difficulties dealing with the side effects like fatigue and stress, which eventually led her to quit her job to fully focus on her recovery. However, thanks to the support of her family and friends, she finally managed to survive the disease in 2021 after a hard 5-year bout with cancer. According to NCSM, getting diagnosed with cancer does not mean a death sentence, as the chances of survival are getting higher due to improvements in medical technology. Despite this, the NGO still urged the people not to be afraid and to avoid getting misinformed on the disease, which can prevent them from seeking immediate treatment or even getting themselves diagnosed.
One of the big misconceptions that Malaysians have is that, cancer is not running in my family, so I won't get cancer, so I don't need to check for cancer. I think that's a very, very big misconception. By our own national statistics, about 3 in every 10 Malaysians will get cancer by the age of about 70, 75. More than half our cancers are diagnosed in stage 3, stage 4. So for such an advanced country, this is very disappointing. We should do much better.
NCSM also noted that more than 20,000 Malaysians are diagnosed with cancer every year. Thus, the organization stressed that the public need to get themselves checked before it is too late so that they would not suffer alone in silence. Having faith, the right knowledge, as well as good support system are also vital for cancer patients to beat the disease. Cancer does not discriminate, as this destructive disease is a leading cause of death worldwide, accounting for nearly 10 million deaths in 2020. However, by improving cancer education and raising public awareness, we can prevent cancer death, including among those who are already diagnosed with the disease. Hakim Azman, TV3.
When we come back, China to fully reopen borders with Hong Kong and Macau. Stay with us. ASEAN foreign ministers on Friday welcomed Timor-Leste's participation as an observer for the first time at the 32nd ASEAN Coordinating Council ACC meeting. Symbolically, Timor-Leste's foreign minister Adalgisa Magno was introduced and called into the hall at the ASEAN Secretariat building to participate in the meeting. Foreign Minister Datuk Seri Zamri Abdul Kadir said Timor-Leste can now attend a series of ASEAN-level meetings as an observer until an official decision by consensus is made to accept the country as a member of ASEAN. This is in line with the decision of member countries reached during the 40th ASEAN Summit in Cambodia last November. During the meeting, Datuk Seri Zamri said Indonesia, as ASEAN 2023 chairman, presented its priorities and agenda with the theme ASEAN Matters, Epicentrum of Growth. He said Indonesia wants to make ASEAN a centre of growth for the region and the world and emphasized the blue economy to produce sustainable use of marine resources for economic growth. The Myanmar issue was also discussed, he said, adding that ASEAN adheres to the 5-point consensus 5PC to help resolve the issue in Myanmar. The meeting, chaired by Indonesian Foreign Minister Retno Marsudi, took place without the presence of representatives from Myanmar, even though non-political representatives had been invited to participate. China on Friday has announced that cross-border travel between the mainland, Hong Kong and Macau would fully resume from February 6, dropping COVID-19 testing requirements and daily quotas after nearly 3 years of closure. According to the State Council's Hong Kong and Macau Affairs Office, group tours between China and its 2 special administrative regions of Hong Kong and Macau would resume, while the number of customs checkpoints opened will return to pre-pandemic levels. Hong Kong will also scrap a COVID-19 vaccination requirement to enter Hong Kong for all arrivals, including non-Hong Kong residents. The announcement came a day after Hong Kong launched a promotion campaign, including 500,000 free flights to lure back visitors, businesses and investors to the financial hub after more than 3 years of tough COVID curbs. A South Korean court on Friday sentenced former Justice Minister Cho Kuk to 2 years in prison after he was found guilty of creating fake credentials to help his children get into prestigious schools, a scandal that rocked the country's previous government and sparked huge protests. Cho was also found guilty of abusing his powers while serving as a senior aide to former President Moon Jae-in by blocking an investigation into a former Financial Services Commission official who was eventually arrested for taking bribes. But the Seoul Central District Court decided not to place Cho under immediate arrest, saying he wasn't a threat to flee and that his wife was already serving a prison term over the charges related to their children. The former law professor was a key aide to former President Moon Jae-in and briefly served as Justice Minister before he resigned over the scandal and was indicted on a dozen charges, including bribery and document fraud in late 2019. Wellington Phoenix's unbeaten On to sports now. Football, the Australian A-League. Bottom place Melbourne Victory registered a morale-boosting 3-1 win over Wellington Phoenix in Melbourne on Friday. A win could have lifted Phoenix provisionally to second spot in the standings, and the visiting team's hopes were raised when they took the lead through their Polish striker Oskar Zawada in the 13th minute. Victory, however, levelled the scores after Bruno Fornaroli fired home from close range just past the half-hour mark. Victory continued to dominate the game when Jake Brimmer converted a free kick in the 44th minute and Tommy Uric added the third in the added time to seal the win. On to cycling. Movistar team's Ruben Guerrero saw off Davide Formolo of UAE Team Emirates and Santiago Buitrago of Bahrain victorious in a sprint across the final 3 kilometres to win stage 4 of the Saudi Tour. The three riders, together with Formolo's UAE Team Emirates teammate Felix Gross-Chartner, broke away from the peloton on the climb to set up the photo finish. Guerrero now sits at the top spot in the overall standings, 8 seconds ahead of nearest competitor Formolo and 9 ahead of Buitrago in third. Overnight leader Jonathan Milan of Bahrain victorious, meanwhile, finished 28 seconds behind Guerrero, falling to 5th in the overall standings. Over 100 people cheated by online reward scam. This and more after this short break. More than 100 individuals have lost over 4.6 million ringgit since 2018 after being duped into joining an online rewards scheme that offered 50% discount by a dubious company through a mobile application. Malaysia International Humanitarian Organisation MHO Secretary General Datuk Ishamuddin Hashim said so far about 100 victims have lodged police reports. However, his team believed more people have fallen victim and the amount of losses was much bigger.
Mereka menggunakan sindiket ini menggunakan nama-nama VIP. Nama-nama orang besar. Ada di kalangan penasihat daripada syarikat ini merupakan kerabat diraja. Ada di kalangan penasihat yang merupakan pegawai, bekas pegawai polis berpangkat tinggi. Ada di kalangan penasihat ini merupakan individu yang tersohor, yang merupakan seorang pencetus ummah.
In a press conference in front of the Sentul Police headquarters in Kuala Lumpur on Friday, Datuk Hishamuddin added the company also offered e-vouchers or online rewards involving various recognised brands such as Petronas and Shell. He also said their modus operandi had caused many consumers to believe that the scheme was genuine and bought vouchers totalling more than 400,000 ringgit. However, after they made their purchases, the users were unable to redeem the rewards as the company suddenly closed their application without any reason in April last year. It was believed that there were nearly 900,000 registered users of the application, with some willing to spend savings meant for their children to redeem points. In Pahang, a former oil and gas company executive was charged at the Kuantan Sessions Court on Friday with 10 counts of submitting false invoices to obtain payment for the purchase of fire and safety equipment worth 320,000 ringgit 2 years ago. However, 38-year-old Muhammad Hafiz Manap pleaded not guilty to all the charges before Judge Dato Ahmad Zamzani Muhammad Zain. The accused, who was the fire and emergency response executive at the company, allegedly committed the offence at his company's office in the Gebeng industrial area between January and September 2021. He was charged under the Malaysian Anti-Corruption Commission (MACC) Act, which carries a maximum jail term of 20 years and a fine of 5 times the value of the offence committed, or 10,000 ringgit, whichever is higher. The judge fixed bail at 60,000 ringgit and ordered Muhammad Hafiz to return his passport to the court and report to the nearest MACC office once every month until the conclusion of the case. The court then fixed March 3rd for mention. With only seconds to pull your ripcord might sound like the act of an insane person. But that's exactly what 150 base jumpers from 20 different countries did as they leaped off the Kuala Lumpur Tower on Friday. Let's take a look at some amazing leaps of faith as we wrap up Nightline this time around. I'm Nadia Azmi. Thank you for watching. Stay safe and have a great weekend.